Hello everyone, I am Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan, and from Chess Gyaan Academy and Follow Chess app, we are bringing you a daily coverage of 21 great players from the past who had the potential to become world champion, but maybe they fell just short. So this is day 3 of the 21 days program, and the first 2 days we talked about Grandmaster Reshevsky and Geller, and today we have our new player who was Samuel Reshevsky, and he was a Polish born, later on emigrated to America, the United States, and was a very well known chess player, but never really a full time chess professional by what we understand, and he has a very well regarded chess author too. And he had a very fierce rivalry with Bobby Fischer, and one of his biggest achievements of Reshevsky is that he's a 8-time winner of the US Chess Championship, and he has also played the candidates few times, and he's the player whose games we are going to look at today. So the game that we are going to look at today is between Samuel Reshevsky, our star today, against Bobby Fischer. So this is a game that was played in New York in 1956. I believe this was a match between these two players, and this was the 6th game of their match, if I'm not mistaken. And Reshevsky is playing the white pieces, and Fischer has the black pieces. So let's get into the game. White starts with c4. Not a big surprise if people have analyzed Reshevsky's game, and you may have seen a lot of his games start with 1 d4, and which most of the time transposes to c4 setup. So he goes to 1 c4, and black goes knight f6, d4, g6, maybe a King's Indian or a Grunfeld is coming up. White goes with g3, and black plays bishop g7, and white goes bishop g2. Nothing really surprising about this, as Reshevsky is a very positional player. If you see his games, his games in Queen's Gambit Decline and so on, he has played so many wonderful games with white. So if you're learning to play 1 d4 and you want to know how to play the structures positionally, I would strongly recommend you to check the games of Grandmaster Reshevsky. And also in general, if you want to improve on your positional skills also, I would suggest to check his games. So bishop g2, castle, knight c3. So white is saying, I don't want to play this some kind of counter attack on the queen side and you attack on the king side, because I played g3, bishop g2, I have fiancé it out, so it's going to be a more positional battle on the board. Black goes d6 and white goes knight f3. So here there are two big continuations for black. One is knight c6 and another is knight bd7. Where the knight is being developed is a matter of individual preference and choice, I would say, and both the moves are very solid and have good ideas behind them. In this game, black went knight c6. If knight bd7 was played, white would have shot castle, black had played e5, and we are at a start of a theoretical position with a lot of options for both sides from here on. Instead of knight bd7, black decided to go knight c6. So if you're seeing this position for the first time, you may be tempted to say knight c6 could be a dubious move, because you'd be like d5 and white gains a tempo attacking the knight, right? And we get more space. But the problem is, when we play a move like d5, black will go knight a5, threatening to take knight c4. And then if white goes something like knight d2, black can play c5. So the two big ideas, in my opinion, for black, one is to, after knight a5, is to possibly play c6 or e6 break and try to exchange this pawn that wants to d5 pawn. Or another idea is that after knight d2, this bishop on g2 is restricted, as this pawn is blockading the bishop from controlling the full diagonal. So black can try to exploit this fact by going c5, and later on by going a6, rook b8, b5, and trying to break open on the queen side. This is a very active plan for black. So because of this reason, d5, even though it is played in quite a bit of games, it's not gives any advantage or anything for white. So here in the game, instead of d5, white continued with short castle, and black played a6. So the idea of a6 is at some point black wants to go rook b8 and play b5 and try to, you know, maybe weaken this broader center, the c4 pawn, so such that if even if d5 comes, it wouldn't be of much impact. And also, as I had earlier mentioned, if d5 happens, as always, knight a5 followed by b5 ideas also. So for a6, it's a very interesting thing to note is for a6 there are around 14 moves that are played by strong players in database for white in this particular position. Any logical and decent move that you see, white has tested it here, like let's say h3, rook b1, b3 and d5, even e4. I believe there are a lot of games, so bishop f4 and so on. And in recent times when I was looking in the database, there seems to be more scrutiny of mainly bishop f4, this variation, and d3 as played in this game. So the idea of bishop f4, I guess, is at some point white wants to just go rook c1 and maybe stop some sort of knight e5 if d5 is played. I think that mainly it's just to play rook c1, clear the c1 square for the rook. So if black goes rook b8, white can play rook c1, and if h6, d5, and black has a very nice move here, not knight a5 but e5, counter attacking the f4 bishop. So if black plays d6, bishop e6, b3. The main plans for white in this position is something like queen d2, rook f d1, and try to add more pressure by playing knight d5 and so on. And from black's perspective, the main plans are queen to d7 and then try to exchange the light square bishop with bishop h3 and so on. As white has more space due to this pawn on c4 controlling the d5 square, it makes a lot of sense for black to try to exchange some minor pieces of the board and give some breathing space to his remaining pieces. So this is what would have happened if bishop f4 was played. In the game, white played b3, the other kind of trending move now also, and black went rook b8. So here white has option to go d5. There are quite a few recent games in this line also, like knight a5, bishop g5, c5 and so on. And as I mentioned, b5 is a threat that's coming up, and it's a fairly unclear position in my opinion, with both sides having their own set of plans. So for rook b8, white instead of d5 in this game went bishop b2. So before we go into bishop b2, I also want to explain the idea of rook b8. As I had earlier mentioned, when a6 was played, black wants to go b5. So rook b8 also helps black in going b5 because now the b pawn is protected, and after rook b8. And another key idea is the knight being on c6, black, whenever he plays b5, he may run into some pin on this h1 a8 diagonal. So when you have moved the rook away, you can also move your knight away from c6 without worrying about the rook on a8. So that is also another advantage of going rook to b8. So white decided to play bishop to b2 here. Black goes b5, c takes b5, a takes b5, and white goes rook c1. This move, when it was played in 1956, this game was a novelty. I mean, this was the first time, this move was played. We can call it a new move or a novelty. We are not sure if it's prepared or if it was just an over-the-board natural move that white figured out he'll play. And the key idea behind this is obviously put pressure on this knight, and in case of the knight moves, put pressure on this pawn, this backward pawn on c7. So these two are the key ideas or weaknesses that white is targeting with rook c1. And in my opinion, black goes wrong immediately after rook c1, the new move. Black goes knight a5. I believe the better try for black would have been bishop d7. And once d5 is played, provoking the knight to move, then knight a5, knight d4, and fairly complicated position. I mean, white can play e4 at some point if he wants to, but always he has to worry about the fact this bishop on g2's view would be blocked. And black can always consider moves like e5 or something and try to remove the strong pawn on d5, or play around the d5 pawn by continuing to develop your remaining pieces, like or improve your remaining pieces. For example, the queen needs a better square, the rook needs a better square from where they are currently located, and so on. So for rook c1, bishop d7 would have been a better option for black. Instead of bishop d7, another option for black would be to go b4, knight a4, knight a7. White can play queen c2, c6, e4. I think white has an edge in this position because The knight on a7 seems passive. White has a firm grip on the center, and c6 is a very long-term weakness. But we cannot say something similar in White's camp like a long-term weakness or so. So White certainly has a solid plus equals position here. But the mistake and the move that was played by Fischer here was knight a5. So for knight a5, White has two good options. One that was played in the game, which is going e4. In another kind of an historical game played in around 1982 by Grandmaster Oleg Romanishin, he went queen c2. After b4, he went knight b1, and after c6, he went e4. And knight e8, knight b d2, knight c7, rook f d1, knight b5, knight f1, queen b6, knight e3. So if you look at it, this knight has also gone, the knight on e3 has gone through a lot of squares. It started here its journey on c3 and when it went to e3, the journey was basically from c3 to b1, b1 to d2, d2 to f1, f1 to e3, a long maneuver. And from even here, I think it may at some point may possibly even consider going knight to c4. So this whole maneuver has put the knight in a way better square than where it started at c3. And at the same time, we can say about the black knight also. So when we started this variation, the knight was sitting on f6. And then when we see the final position, the knight from e8, f6 went to e8, to c7, to b5. So black has also improved his knight, and more importantly, by moving the knight away, black has also activated the bishop to put some pressure on the d4 pawn. So both sides have primarily worked on improving their knight's position. So this position is also a solid plus equals in my opinion, because white is the one who has some targets to attack and a stronger center. And this was not played in the game, though. We were discussing the variation now was queen c2. This was the variation we just discussed. Instead, white played e4 directly. Black went b4 and white played e5. So here black makes the bigger mistake. So the first mistake, as I said, was knight a5. But after this mistake that black makes in this position, I don't think black has any chance to come back into the game at all. So here, for example, the best move for black in my opinion would be to first play d takes e5, d takes e5, b takes c3, bishop takes c3, and then play knight takes b3. So if a b3, then black can play queen takes d1, rook f d1, knight e4, and both sides have one weakness apiece, one weakness each, and both those pawns would be traded, and black should be fine holding a draw. In case for d takes e5, d takes e5, b takes c3, let's say something like ef6, black can play queen takes d1 if he wants, he can play c takes b2, and so on, and black is doing perfectly fine here. So ef6 is not really an advisable move. So in this position, we just looked at d e5, and another option for black would have been to go knight d7. But here white has a very strong move. I mean, first of all, it's a big decision to decide where to put the knight, because a4 is a possibility, d5 is a possibility, e4 is a possibility, e2, b1. So many candidate moves. Except b5, the knight is, all the other legal moves are good squares for the knight. But the best variation of all is to go knight d5. The point is obviously now the c7 pawn is under pressure, and if black goes bishop b7, white unfortunately cannot capture the pawn, because of knight c7, rook c8, e takes d6, e d6, knight b5, queen b6. Knight is kind of trapped. If white wants to save the knight, white has to play something like a4, but then that would allow moves like b takes a3, and then the b3 pawn would be hanging at the end of the line. So black would get back the sacrificed pawn, and there would be no advantage for white. So instead of knight takes c7 in this position, white has knight e3, and this position promises white, in my opinion, a plus equals. One is that, okay, knight c4 kind of ideas do exist, and maybe some e d6 followed by d5 ideas exist, and in general the knight is feeling far more secure on e3 compared to c3. So, and if needed at some point, it can try to go some knight g4 idea, queen d2, knight at 6 check, and try to attack the black king also. So knight e3 is a very good square for the knight. So in this position, after b4, e5, black did not play d5, but he instead directly took b takes c3. The problem with this is that white captures back with bishop takes e3, and white gets a big advantage. If white had played e takes f6, what would have possibly transpired is black would have played cb2, f takes g7, king g7, rook b1, and a fairly equal position. White will regain the pawn back on b2, but at the same time black will also be able to more or less complete his development, and black should be fine. So in noticing this, Reshevsky decided to take bishop takes c3, and the point being now both the knights are being attacked. So black cannot defend both the knights at the same time. So black has a multitude of options here. In the game, black went knight b7. If knight c6 is an option, but if knight c6, I think white can just play e takes f6, bishop f6, d5, exchange these dark square bishops. That's so that white can go some ideas like queen d2 and follow it up with queen f6, knight g5, or knight d4, knight c6 kind of ideas, and exploit the dark square weakness. That would be white's plan. So for knight c6, we just saw how white gets an advantage. In case if black goes knight takes b3, white has e takes f6, knight takes c1, f takes g7, king g7, queen c1. White has two minor pieces for the rook, but that's not the main composition or the advantage that from which white derives his advantage. It's mainly because white is going to go d5 check, and the black king is going to be under big pressure because all the dark squares are going to be under white's bishop control, and white can possibly threaten to go knight d4, knight c6 and get an outpost on c6 also. That is why knight takes b3 would fail. So instead of knight takes b3, if d5 is played here, white can play bishop a5. This is the key difference between first playing d takes e5, d takes e5, b takes c3, and first playing b takes c3, bishop takes c3, and d e5. Here white has the option to play bishop a5, and after this black is in trouble because after knight e8, knight e5, white is just simply a pawn up, and with some deadly threats like knight c6, and possibly the c7 pawn may also fall as it feels very isolated on that square. And as you can see, all the black pieces are on their first rank, which shows how passive, except for the bishop on g7, which shows how passive the black's pieces and the problems with this development are. So here we covered d5, we covered knight b3, we covered knight c6, and so in my opinion the best move for black is to play c6 here, defending the a5 knight, and also at the same time not allowing white to play d5 and establish some sort of an outpost. So for c6, if e takes f6, bishop takes f6, queen d2, rook a8, d5, white is planning to exchange this bishops, and once the bishops are exchanged, this standard idea of queen h6 followed by knight g5 will give a mating attack. Even if not, this e7 pawn is a big problem for black to worry about. So here for bishop takes c3, black decides to play knight b7. So this is a very passive square for the knight because c5 is not accessible, d8 is not accessible. So white plays e takes f6, bishop takes f6, and b4. So strengthening his grip on these two squares, which could possibly be the escape squares for the black knight on b7. So for here, black has two options other than the move that was played in the game. Black played bishop f5, which makes his loss even faster. But if black had played c6, giving some practical chances because he's stopping both fixing moves of b5 and d5, white can still play d5, c5, and a3, so that if cb4, white will take ab4 and still retain the control of these two squares so the knight cannot escape. So for c6, if black if black goes d5, let's say, white can play b5, but the problem with b5 is that most likely black will go knight d6 and then knight e4 so on and activate. So white first goes knight e5, so he's threatening knight c6, which forces, if bishop takes e5, white will be happy to play d e5 because we take away this square from the knight and also we are attacking this pawn on d5. So for knight e5, if black goes queen d6, now the d6 square is occupied by the queen so that the knight on b7 cannot come there. White can play b5, rook a8, a4, and if knight tries to come back into the game with knight a5, white doesn't have to worry much because white can just simply go rook e1 and patiently improve his remaining pieces, because the knight's only square here is knight c4, which is not happening anytime soon because this bishop on g2 is attacking the rook a on a8. So overall, a very crushing position for white after rook e1. In the game, black went bishop f5 here, and white played d5, So as earlier mentioned, these bishops are going to get traded, after which all the dark squares will come under complete control for white. And also white has a huge space advantage, 2 passed pawns on the queen side. So for d5, bishop takes c3, rook c3, black goes queen d7. If black had gone, let's say, rook a8, white would have simply gone knight d4, bishop d7, rook e1, rook a2, knight c6, bishop c6, dc6, and this knight is sadly trapped on b7. And if black had gone for rook c3 in move 18, if black had played e5, white can play d takes e6, bishop takes e6, knight d4, again aiming at the c6 square, and also now I think a4, b5 ideas are also coming up immediately. And even at some point, if white wants to have more fun, white can even try h4, h5 and try to attack on the king side also. So for rook takes c3, black went queen d7 in the game, white played queen c1, threatening to take here, but more importantly wanting to access this h6 square. So rook fc8, knight d4 is a possibility. If needed, white went instead queen h6, f6, knight d4, knight d8. So black has at last managed to move the knight away from b7, but it's not doing anything better on d8 either. So white just plays safely a3. In this position, all these like last 2-3 moves, white has multiple moves that are strong enough, gives advantage or retains the existing advantage. So if you have not found the best moves or the moves that was played by white in this game, it's not like it's a wrong move. You may have found even something that's equally strong or even better than the text move. So for a3, knight f7, if e5 was played here, white would just play knight f5, and gfa unfortunately would lose a pawn to queen f6. And if queen takes f5, white has bishop h3 and winning an exchange on c8. So because of this, for a3, black went knight f7, pushing the queen away from h6. White goes queen e3, black goes knight e5. So the knight from b7 made a trip, but immediately the knight gets kicked away from e5 as white goes f4. Now knight g4. So the only escape square for the knight now is h6, which is cannot be controlled by white in any time soon. So it's not like the knight will get trapped. If white plays h3, black will always have knight h6. But maybe a problem for black is if the bishop on f5 will get trapped, because that bishop is also running low of good squares. So after f4, knight g4, queen d2, h5 was played. If e5 was played, white would have played d e6, bishop e6, knight e6, queen e6, and black loses the queen thanks to bishop d5. So here for queen d2, h5, rook e1. So the knight, white is still waiting to see which square would be better for his knight, this or this. Or maybe at some point, if the queen king side is very weak, he may even just consider knight f5 takes and bishop e4 kind of ideas also. So very patient handling of position by white, because white knows he has a huge advantage in his hand. Black goes rook a8, white plays h3, knight h6, king h2. The king has been improved. We have taken away another square away from the knight, and even if the knight goes back knight f7, it still doesn't have e5 or g5 square. So black goes king f7, white goes queen e2, knight g8, and here white played rook ec1. Most players, the first move and the flashy move that would come to mind is queen e6 check, which is also good enough to win. The point being, if you play bishop e6, it's d e6 check, and then you win the queen, and also possibly the rook would be hanging like the next move. So in case of queen takes e6, we can just play d e6, and then white can win an exchange on a8. So if black goes king f8, white can play knight f5, and if queen e6, then capture d e6, and then play bishop takes a8 and win an exchange. So this is one way of winning the game. Instead, white decided to go rook ec1, black went rook a7, and white played queen e3. And black resigned in this position because he realized that in case if I go rook b7, white would take and go queen e6, and I lose a full rook on b7 at the end of this line. So would not be a great decision. And another option is in case if black goes rook a8, it's pretty much similar. Knight takes f5, and if gf5 or queen f5, you have queen e6 check, queen takes e6, d e6, king e6, and you can just take the pawn, and rook b1, and this knight continues to remain trapped. I mean, the knight has gone all over the board in just 31 moves of the game. Knight has traveled like everywhere. It started out on b8 and ended up on g8, and the path to g8 was very interesting. It was like c6, then a5, and so on. So then went to b7, and so out of the, I think 30 moves, maybe 6 or 7 moves would have been with the knight. We can check the path of the knight. Let's quickly see where all the knight went. This is a very useful tool in my opinion, if you like want to see like where all a certain piece had gone. And let's look at the knight. Sorry, that was a path for the rook. So after here in this position, so this is where the last, how the knight landed on g8. So yep, so we have the knight path. So it went c6, a5, b7, and then the knight went to, I'll make arrows, c6, a5, b7, and then d8, then f7, and then e5, then g4, then h6, and then g8. A very long and journey for the knight, and still ended up being bad. So this was a very simple, clean game by Grandmaster Reshevsky against Grandmaster Bobby Fischer and world champion Bobby Fischer. And I mean, true to his style, White played a very great positional game, and Black opened up with King's Indian, trying to maybe kind of complicate things, but White decided to go g3 and keep the things positionally. And then the biggest mistake came somewhere around here, when Black played b takes c3 on move 13, when instead he should have first played d5 and then played b takes c3, because this allows the queens to be traded and exchange some more pieces of the board, so that the pressure on the position would have been less. So but once this mistake was made and the knight landed up on b7, there was no looking back, as White just gradually improved his pieces and just finished the game. Yeah, so that's the game of today that we saw, and I hope all the viewers are safe wherever they are. I mean, there's lockdowns all over the world, so everyone stay safe. And this project of one game a day, and what we call is 21 gems of chess, is brought to you by like Follow Chess app and Chess Gyaan Academy, and I will be doing the analysis. And if you miss watching this game on the Follow Chess app, you can also log on to the Chess Gyaan YouTube channel, where the video part of this is uploaded, so you can have a look at it. So if you want to look at it with the PGN file, you would have to look at it through the app, Follow Chess app. If you just want to see the video, you can look at it in the Chess Gyaan YouTube channel. And in the Follow Chess app also, the videos linked, so you can watch PGN and also watch the video and also at the same time look at the PGN. So that's all from me, Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan, and I will see you all tomorrow with a different Grandmaster and one of his best game. Bye bye.